Lana, this is pretty fascinating. Let's look at this, folks. You are likely on this board right now, one of these people. This is the U.S. population. At this moment, it's about 335 million people. And whether the population grows or shrinks depends mostly on one thing, and it might surprise you: immigration. You see, in the Census Bureau's most recent estimate, the population will continue to grow about roughly 2080. That's the line you see on this screen, and reach about 370 million. Then it expects a decline to 366 million. This is by 2100. But get this: if there is a large amount of immigration over the next several decades, the population would continue increasing without any decline through 2100, all the way up to 435 million. But there's another scenario here. What if immigration dips? There would then be a noticeable contraction to the U.S. population. It would peak at 346 million by 2043, and then that's 34 years earlier than in the previous scenario. And then, as you see here, it drops to about 319 million by 2100. So what does this all mean? Well, the Census Bureau finds that immigration is the single most influential factor in shaping the future of the U.S.'s population size. As you see here, foreign-born individuals have become increasingly a large percent of the population and help to keep overall growth rates steady. And that's because the number of native-born U.S. citizens is slowly decreasing, and there are more U.S.-born Americans dying than being born. That's a phenomenon known as natural decrease. Also, get this: as the U.S. population ages, folks are having fewer children. And in the Census Bureau's estimates, older folks will surpass kids under 18 by 2029. That is just around the corner. And this is a key number. This scenario will leave only about 60% of the population at working age. That's 5% less than are currently working, which, as you might imagine, will have significant impacts on tax income and the health of the U.S. economy. Now, the U.S. is not going through this change alone. Europe also seeing a significant aging of its population, and that is partially what motivated French President Emmanuel Macron, you may remember, to attempt to raise the retirement age there, which was a massively controversial issue. Joining us now is Dowell Myers. He's a professor of policy planning and demography at the University of Southern California. It's great to have you with us talking about this, Dowell. So what effects would a shrinking population have on the United States overall?
Well, overall, maybe there'd be fewer cars on the road. That'd be a positive benefit. But the real issue is the ratios between the older and the younger age groups. The baby boomers, are getting older. They're retiring. They have a right to retire. And we're becoming kind of top heavy in our population. We need to have enough working age people underneath the retirees in order to support them all. It used to be classically, we had a population pyramid where it'd be a few people at the top and a wide base at the bottom. But the latest numbers show that at the bottom it's actually shrinking and tapering in, so we're becoming top heavy on top. That does not augur well for lots of things, because we're sort of used to having a base of workers who can pay into Social Security and other tax funds, and that would support the older population. But the real issue is we have twice as many older people and no growth in the working age. And so that's making it lopsided.
I want to dig in a little bit more about this question of immigration, because, as you know, it is a divisive issue among lawmakers, but you're also highlighting all the reasons why, given the current trends in U.S. population, that they're essential to broadening out the tax base. If lawmakers decided to curtail immigration in a very big way, as Errol pointed out, would there be any alternatives to increasing the population and covering those taxes, particularly for the older Americans?
Well, if we shrank the immigration, that would be a hit on all of our doctors and surgeons and also our home healthcare workers. So we'd have a practical problem. But what we could do is, basically, you're going to have every working age adult, like age 35, is going to have to support a heavier load of older people. And the only way that works, in my view, is if we fortify them with stronger education today, because then they will be more productive as they become workers, as children become workers, and then they can carry that heavier load. That's the only practical way, because you can't stop aging. That's going to keep happening. The older people are going to retire, and the kids are going to guarantee you they're going to grow up and become working age. So we really want to fortify them to be the best possible workers they can be, and then they can live a much more luxurious lifestyle themselves as consumers. They have better incomes because of their better jobs, because of their better education that we set them up for today. So planning ahead, we have to fortify the children of today to carry the load of tomorrow.
I mean, these demographic trends are really quite fascinating. But as we watched unfold in France, you know, the president's efforts to raise the retirement age were extremely controversial. It led to months of street protests. Do you imagine that we could see similar moves in the U.S. so it can adapt to an older population?
Well, we're already, you know, it's already happening. People are retiring more slowly. The earliest retirement age occurred in like about 1984. And ever since then, people have been working a little bit longer. And that's going to continue probably. As we shifted to the information economy, you know, these judges and lawyers and professors, they work until they're 80. And so that's going to be happening more and more naturally without having to require people to work longer. So I think we should expect that's going to be the norm going forward.
So the young social media influencers of today from Gen Z will be working well into their 80s and 90s. It's a fascinating future ahead of us all. Dowell Myers,
so.
Yeah, great to have you with us to talk about this. Really eye-opening.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.